Welcome back, everybody, to episode 11 of the CG Sports Podcast. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 9 predictions. Just to get us started for the bye weeks this week, we got the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Philadelphia Eagles. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Starting off, we got the Packers and the Niners. The Packers took a close loss to the Vikings last week, gave up 4 touchdowns to Dalvin Cook. Tough game for them last week. Niners, on the other hand, got beat out by the Seahawks, and Jimmy G is once again injured. He will be out for this game. Niners also playing without George Kittle, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Deebo Samuel, Kendrick Bourne. Basically, any threat on the offensive side of the ball for the Niners, they're not going to have. Not to mention their defense is already messed up now without Quan Alexander, and of course no Richard Sherman for like a while now, but for the Packers, Aaron Jones is going to play, but I think he's going to get pretty minimum playing time. I don't expect him to do too much on Thursday, so we'll see how that goes. The injuries on the Niners offense is going to ruin any chance of them winning the way I see it. I think the Packers are going to bounce back this week. A pretty simple call here. Packers are going to win this one 34-13. Moving on to the Sunday games, starting off with the Texans and the Jaguars. These are both teams that are coming off their bye week. The Jaguars will be without Gardner Minshew once again this week. This means that Mike Glennon is going to get the start. I think this is going to be the primary reason that this game is going to be a lot closer than it would have been on Sunday. For the Texans, I expect David Johnson to have a really good game as he did in Week 1. The Jaguars, their defenses looked okay, but I think they're going to struggle this week. The run defense is not going to hold up against David Johnson. I think he can actually have himself a pretty solid game. Watson, as always, is going to have a pretty good game. I really just don't see any productivity from the Jaguars coming this week on the offensive side of the ball. I just don't see a way Mike Glennon gets it done and beats out the Texans this week. So, Texans got this one. I think they win it 24-10. Next game we've got the New York Giants and the Washington football team. Giants lost a close game to Brady and the Bucks last week and missed a 2-point conversion to tie the game. I got to give credit, though. Daniel Jones, an amazing drive there. They had a couple of times where they were on 4th down. I think they had one or just 3rd and long. I remember Darius Slayton made a great catch, and Sterling Shepard got like a 17, 18-yard gain where he broke 2 tackles and dived for the first. So great drive on that final sequence by the Giants. They just were unable to get the 2-point conversion, and maybe even a PI call there if you saw it, but it was close. So Washington, on the other hand, coming off their bye week. Washington's going to be without Landon Collins this week. I mean, we haven't really seen him a lot this year anyways, and he's a pretty big part of their defense. I got to say, I really liked what I saw from the Giants last week. I think they're going to have continued success this week. Daniel Jones, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, all those guys. I think they're all going to have continued success this week. I'd look for their offense to really be looking good. Obviously, the Redskins have a pretty decent pass rush and guys like Chase Young and Ryan Kerrigan. I think the Giants are going to be able to lock it up, get some offense going, and the Giants win this one in a close one, 20-16. Next up, we've got the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts. The Ravens lost to an undefeated Pittsburgh team. They had a shot to win the game on the final play, but Lamar couldn't get the ball at the right spot. So, close one there, but they couldn't pull it out on Pittsburgh. Colts, on the other hand, absolutely dominated the Lions. I think they won by 20 points, somewhere around there, something in the 20s. Ravens going to be without Marlon Humphrey this week, who has played like a top 2 corner in the league this season. I think this loss is going to really help the Colts keep this game close. I think Phillip Rivers is going to have a similar game to last week to what he did to Detroit. I'd look for 2 touchdowns from him. Maybe he'll get another one from the back. But even with that, I don't think Lamar is going to let the Ravens lose this one. I think they're going to be looking to bounce back. They lost a tough one to the Steelers, where I really feel like they deserve to win the game. The defense just let it up on that final Steeler drive. So I think Lamar this week runs for 150, throws for 300, on pace to a Ravens win 27-23. Next game we've got is the Lions and the Vikings. Lions, as we just said, got demolished by the Colts. And Vikings also, as we spoke about, beat out the Packers off a Dalvin Cook performance. I think Dalvin Cook sort of came out of nowhere last week. He really hasn't played too great. this season, and he just kind of came out of nowhere and put up 4 touchdowns. So I don't think the Lions are going to let this happen. I think the Lions are going to game plan for him. I think they're going to look at the film, make some defensive adjustments, and they're going to be ready for Dalvin Cook this week. The big problem is the Lions are going to be without Matthew Stafford, who recently just got put on the COVID-19 reserve list, and Kenny Golladay, who is suffering with an injury. So I think this is just going to completely ruin their offense. The starter on Sunday will most likely be Chase Daniel, and I don't think the Lions are going to win with him. Simple as that. I think Kirk Cousins is going to throw 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook going to get one for himself, even though they game plan. And the Vikings, despite being horrendously injured on the defensive side of the ball, going to win this one 24-16. Next game we got the Chicago Bears and the Tennessee Titans. Bears lost a close game to the Saints in overtime last week. Titans got upset by the Bengals, led by Joe Burrow, who surprisingly threw for 250 and 2 TDs, which is a pretty good game. I know through the first couple of weeks he looked really good, but he's kind of slowed down a little bit these past couple of weeks. But this was a good performance for him last week against Tennessee. This is going to be a matchup of a great offense and a great defense. Of course, as we know from the Titans, they got that amazing offense. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry looking like the best back in the league. A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, just a ton of great guys. And you talk about the Bears defense, really it's led by Kyle Fuller and Khalil Mack, but still guys like Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan on that squad too, Eddie Jackson, just tons of great guys on that Bears defense. And so I think this is going to be interesting, but I'm basing this game simply on the fact that the Bears struggled to stop the Saints offense. And the Saints offense, although it's good, I don't think it matches up to what the Titans have done on offense this year. So I just feel like if they couldn't stop the Saints, I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Titans. Nick Foles is going to get the start for Chicago. Obviously, Trubisky got hurt, but I think Nick Foles had the start locked up anyways. But I think Nick Foles is going to put up points this week. You know, he's got some good guys there, but I think Derrick Henry-led Titans offense is not going to be stopped on Sunday. I think Derrick Henry, man's going to put in 2 touchdowns. Tannehill going to throw 2 of his own. Titans going to win this one 34-23. Next game we've got is going to be the Panthers and the Chiefs. Panthers lost to the Falcons on Thursday Night Football in a game that I personally didn't think they were going to win, but I thought it was going to be a lot worse for them, so I give them credit. They kept it pretty close with Atlanta. Chiefs, on the other hand, blew out the Jets off of Patrick Mahomes' 5-touchdown performance. Big news for this game. Christian McCaffrey is on track to make his return. We haven't seen this man play since week 2. He got caught with that injury bug. We all know about it, like the first 2 weeks. So many players got hurt. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have a major impact on this game. But you also have to remember he's playing against arguably the best QB in football right now. It's close between Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Tom Brady. But yeah, he's a top 3 quarterback in football, 100%, Pat Mahomes. So I think Mahomes is going to have continued dominance. Looked great against the Jets. He's looked great against basically every team he's played. He even looked good against the Raiders, which is their only loss. They just kind of had a slow start, and it cost them at the end. But I think Pat Mahomes, 3-touchdown performance this week. For the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey is going to score a pair of touchdowns. I'll give him 2 this week. But I don't think he's going to come anywhere near close to beating this Chiefs team. Chiefs win this one 38-20. Next game we've got the Seahawks and the Bills. Seahawks, as we saw, beat out the Niners on Sunday night. Bills won a close game 24-21 over New England, where they really almost sold the whole game right at the end there. But this is going to be a battle of 2 MVP candidates for sure. I didn't mention Josh Allen's name, but he's right there with that number 4 quarterback spot. Obviously, as we said, Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, and Josh Allen's right there at the number 4. So based on how the Bills struggled to score on the Pats, I think it's going to be even more difficult on Seattle. The Bills, they looked really good early the first 5 or 6 weeks, but they've started to settle down for the last 2 or 3. I think the Bills are going to be completely outmatched. Russell Wilson is going to continue to do his thing, feed his guys the ball. I mean, he's looked phenomenal. Greg Olsen, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, all those guys, Chris Carson, all those guys have looked so good this year, and their offense just really hasn't been contained yet. If we're going to talk defense, you got Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, all those guys who are just going to keep Josh and the Bills out of that end zone. If we do want to talk Josh Allen, I think he's going to have a decent day. I'll give him 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, but Wilson's going to get the better of him tonight. I'll give Devin Singletary a touchdown of his own too. Seahawks going to win this one though, 34-27. Next game we've got the Broncos and the Falcons. Broncos made an amazing play last week, getting a game-winning touchdown to beat the Chargers to KJ Hamler. Amazing pass there by Drew Lock. Great play call by Denver too, gotta admit that. Falcons beat out Carolina, but we already spoke about that. I gotta say, Drew Lock last week, he looked pretty good. I liked what I saw out of him. I think this week he's gonna have continued success. The real question here is it gonna be enough to beat Atlanta? I mean, we know Drew Lock. A lot of people saw what he did at the end of last season. He looked really good. He came in this year, got hurt. I mean, he did play in like the first week or two. Didn't really look too good, got hurt. Comes back, has a good game. The question is this a fluke like we saw with OBJ, or is this something we can expect to continue throughout the season? Atlanta, of course, has their big three, Ryan, Julio, Gurley. We already know the deal. Now, I think the Broncos are really, really injured on defense, and I think it's going to hurt them bad. They're going to give up an insane amount of points this week. Well, let me not say insane. They're not going to give up an insane amount of points, but they're going to give up a pretty good amount of points. So, I think for the second week in a row, Drew Lock's going to get it done. I never picked the Broncos because I don't have confidence. I have confidence in the Broncos this week to take one on the Falcons. I think Drew Lock goes for 2 touchdowns, and the Broncos are going to win this one 34-21. Next game we got the Raiders and the Chargers. Raiders, as we saw, beat out the Browns in a low-scoring game last week. I think it was like 17-9, not even barely any action on that one. Chargers, as we just spoke about, lost off a game-winning touchdown by the Broncos. I think this Raiders-Chargers game is going to be very high-scoring. We got 2 very good offenses. Of course, when you look at the Chargers, you got Justin Herbert, the rookie, who I think is going to have a phenomenal game. They got Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, just a ton of great players. I think the Raiders are going to outmatch them today, though. Raiders, of course, as we know, Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr, Darren Waller. I think Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr are going to put up 2 touchdowns apiece. I'll give Waller 1 off a Carr pass, too. I think the Raiders win this one in a close game, 38-30. Next game we got the Dolphins and the Cardinals. Dolphins, as we saw, upset the Rams last week in a phenomenal performance by Tua. He played well. I'm not going to give him a phenomenal performance by the Dolphins. Tua had a pretty good game considering his first game. So Cardinals had their bye week last week. Dolphins right now 2-0 against NFC West teams, and I got to admit it. They're gonna keep it up this week. I think their defense is gonna find a way to contain Kyler and Hopkins. I feel like Miami's defense is a super underrated team. Not too many big names on there besides maybe Byron Jones if you want to give him that. But I feel like although they don't have like a big star, they work well together. They have good chemistry and they just get stops, man. What can I say? I think this week Tua and Devontae Parker are going to continue to grow that chemistry. I give the Cardinals a touchdown or 2, but I think the Dolphins are going to blow them out of the water here. I got Tua throwing 3 touchdowns this week. 3 touchdowns en route to his second win. Dolphins are going to get this one 31-17. Next game we got the Steelers and the Cowboys. Steelers, as we spoke about, won a close game over the Ravens. Cowboys last week lost on Sunday night to Philly. This has got to be, if you're going to put everything on the line for a game, it's got to be this one. Come on. It's the easiest call all week. Cowboys without Andy Dalton again, who's still out of the lineup with COVID-19, which means that Ben DiNucci will once again get the start for Dallas. Steelers, on the other hand, still undefeated, and I think it's going to stay that way. They won't have Avery Williamson this week, who they just traded for from the Jets. We can expect him week 10. So that's something to look forward to if you weren't already excited about Steelers football. I expect a great game from James Conner. We saw the Cowboys' run defense last week against Philly was just horrendous. Really, it's been horrendous against every team they've played. I expect another great game from Juju Smith-Schuster, Big Ben. You know, the usual. Steelers are going to dominate the Cowboys. I got Big Ben throwing 3 TDs this week. And I'll give Juju one, give Claypool one, and maybe Connor out the backfield. Or maybe one of them tight ends, Vance McDonald, somebody will grab one. I don't know. We'll see. Big Ben's throwing 3 TDs. Steelers getting this one 34-13. Next game we've got is the Saints and the Bucks. Saints, as we spoke about, beat out the Bears with a winning field goal in overtime. The Bucks also barely beat out the Giants on Monday night. This game, I expect another high-scoring one, as we saw in Week 1. I think Week 1 they put up like 45, 50 points. I'm expecting a similar score. Actually, I think they're going to score even more. I'm going to be real. I think they're going to score even more. Antonio Brown making his return to the NFL this week with the Bucks. I expect him to have an instant impact on this game. I'm looking for a combined 11 touchdowns between both teams. Heard that right? 11 touchdowns between both teams. I think the Bucks are going to get this one, though, I got to say. I think this is going to be a real back-and-forth game, going drive for drive. And, one team gets a stop, the other one will come back and get it. One team scores, the other team comes back and scores. I expect Brady to have a day. He's throwing for 400. I give him 3 touchdowns. I'll give the Bucs defense a touchdown. I'll give Ronald Jones 1, Leonard Fournette 1. These are just wild picks, though. You know me. Brady's throwing 3 TDs, 4 touchdowns. For Breeze and the Saints, I'll give Breeze 2 touchdowns. Maybe Kamara puts up 1 or 2, but it's not going to be enough. I think Brady's going to get his revenge from that tough Week 1 loss where I feel like the Saints really shut them down Week 1. I mean, it was still a close game, but I feel like everyone coming into Week 1 was like the Bucs clinched the Super Bowl already. I feel like the Saints really put them in their place, saying, you're not as good as everybody thinks you are. But I think the Bucs get their revenge this week and win this one 45-38. Finally, we've got our Monday night game between the Patriots and the Jets. The Patriots, as we said, lost a close one to the Bills. Jets also, as we said, got blown out by the Chiefs and are still winless. And I'm going to be real with you guys. I'm going to put it simply. Their first win will not come this week. This game is going to be very low scoring and very sloppy. We're watching 2 pretty bad football teams. It's just the best of the worst, if we're being real here. I think Cam is going to get the better of Darnold and the Jets this week. I'm looking for Cam to put up a rushing touchdown and for the Pats defense to force 2 turnovers this week. And the Pats win this one in a low-scoring game, 17-9. That's going to do it for our Week 9 predictions. You guys can tune in. I'm going to be having some new content coming out this weekend. So look for that on Saturday or Sunday. We're going to have some new content coming out. I will be back to our weekly news video on Wednesday. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for listening, and I'm out. Peace.